2022 has been a year full of travel delays and airport chaos, but the best performing airlines of the year has been revealed. Joining us live now from Flight Centre is Greg Parker. Greg, thank you so much for your time. Can you reveal the news? Who took out the #1 spot?
Yeah, thanks, Gab. There's a couple of different reports that are out at the moment. Canstar Blue is probably the #1, and the best airline's actually been Virgin Australia. So it's rated on a number of different criteria, particularly price of airfares, on-time performance of aircraft, the number of flight cancellations, frequent flyer benefits, but then also in-flight amenities and things like that. So Virgin Australia has come out on top, followed by Qantas, then followed by Jetstar, followed by Regional Express. The Canstar guys did about 900 surveys of customers that have recently travelled, and they've all rated on the most important factors. There is another flip side to that, which is which airline is the best in terms of on-time performance, which effectively means that when an aircraft pushes back from the gate, it has to push back within 15 minutes. And the #1 airline on that has actually been rated Qantas. But when you strip that back, if you're looking at capital cities, the #1 airline from capital cities is Virgin Australia. So that's the wrap of the Australian aviation marketplace at the moment, Gab.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I think a lot of travellers this year have really experienced some difficult challenges when it comes to getting on planes domestically. I suppose after 2 years of COVID, are customers generally unhappier compared to previous years, or are they happy to be back flying again?
I think, generally speaking, people are happy to be back flying again, Gab, but definitely the disruptions is challenging for a lot of customers, and especially when you start looking at the price of airfares that everyone's paying domestically here in Australia. Your expectation of on-time performance and service is actually a lot higher because you're paying more for that ticket. So I think people are being a little bit more patient, but something has to give at some point and get back to a period where it's a lot more normal.
Were you surprised looking at the results of the best performing airlines?
Not really, Gab. Everything sits within a couple of percent of each other. So whether you be Virgin Australia on top or Qantas from an on-time performance, there's only a couple of percentage points difference between all of them.
Do demands change each year?
Yeah, domestic demand obviously has changed a lot this year because it's obviously a lot easier to fly domestically in this country than it is internationally. And that plays out just due to the lack of capacity in the international space, and more customers are travelling domestically than ever before.
China is set to open its international borders. How's this going to impact Australian travellers?
This is fantastic, Gab. This would have to be the best news the travel industry's had in the last 3 years. The Chinese carriers represent about 20% of the capacity that flies in and out of Australia, and they carry about double that in terms of freight. So we need the Chinese carriers or the Chinese borders to open and start flying back into Australia, because that will put pressure on the pricings that are currently sitting in the market with legacy carriers at the moment, because they'll be flying empty aircraft into the country. It also puts pressure on freight. So what happened over COVID is a lot of airlines where you couldn't have border restrictions and you couldn't fly passengers, they converted a lot of their aircraft into freighter aircraft, and their airlines are making quite a bit of money now moving freight around the world. So this will put pressure on carriers to move those aircraft from freighters and put them back into passenger. And we all know that when there's a balance between supply and demand, prices come down. So it'll be a really good thing for consumers to have Chinese carriers flying back into the country, and we're very, very excited about that.
Well, that is certainly good news. Do you think there'll be a high demand in terms of Australians wanting to fly over to visit China, or do you think there'll be, I suppose, a bit of resistance?
I think there'll be some apprehension to start with until some of the border restrictions and to get a little bit of comfort back in that things aren't going to be shut down again. But like in terms of long-haul travel, customers travelling overseas to visit family and relatives, the demand for the Chinese carriers on through connections will definitely be there.
Greg Parker, thanks so much for your time.
No worries. Thanks, Gab.